On today's Locked On Predators, we are kicking off an off-season feature called Fake Trade Tuesday, where we take a closer look at potential trade ideas for the Nashville Predators. Today, let's talk about what it would take to get Dawson Mercer in gold.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are, of course, your free daily Nashville Predators podcast. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off our Tuesday episode this week, shouting out our Locked On Predators insiders and our everydayers who tune in to talk Nashville Predators hockey with us. I'm Kimmel. I am a writer and co-host with Penalty Box Radio, and my friends, I have a partner in crime.
You do. I am Emma Lingan, and I'm the Predators site editor and reporter for the Hockey News.
Emma and I are kicking off a new segment. We are dipping our toe in this water. We're going to see how it goes, and we are calling it Fake Trade Tuesday, my friends. We're going to take a look at some potential trade deals proposed either by insiders or everydayers. We're going to break down any deals that maybe come across our desk that we hear whispered about. We're going to kind of break it down and see, would this move make sense for Nashville? What would it cost Nashville? We're going to be talking fake trades. Now, be clear, the key word in this is fake. We are not reporting that Dawson Mercer is joining the Nashville Predators. We're just going to talk today about what it would take if he did and why we would like it and why we wouldn't. Now, Emma, you and I have talked about this off screen. This is not something that is in our comfort zone.
Yeah, we don't like working in hypotheticals. I, in particular, was where my concern that I shared with Anne before the show was that I'm going to come off sounding like too much of a wet blanket on anyone's dreams. Because like some of these trades, I'm like, oh, I mean, I love the optimism, but
yeah,
like I'm telling people that Santa Claus isn't real. And
yeah, nobody likes to be that guy.
Person. I don't want to be that person.
Yeah.
Any kids who are listening, Santa Claus is real. I'm just likening this to like, imagine if I said he wasn't. Like that would be crushing. I don't want to be that person.
No, nobody. We believe in magic, but there is a limit to the hockey magic. And here is what I will say too, and this is just a part of my personality, and I get it. You know, when you do sports media, you report on things that you don't necessarily want to report on, and you deal in hypotheticals when you don't really want to. But I so dislike the aspect of sports where you put a monetary value on a human being's production. And the bottom line is, you have to do that in sports. That is a part of this game. The players know it. They talk about, this is the business side of it. When Gus Nyquist was traded, it was like everybody's puppy in that locker room had been kicked, but everybody knows that's the business side of it. I just personally hate and this is just a me thing, I hate value being placed on production for any human being. And I know I need to get over that, but so this whole conversation makes Emma and I feel very uncomfortable and in hives, but friends, it's worth diving into because look, here is what's real. Nashville's got some problems that they need to address in the offseason. On yesterday's show, we talked about the magic that could be the offer sheet if it wasn't so unmagical and formulaic and tricky. Well, trades are a much more reasonable way to make changes to a roster. Part of it that I think is really difficult when you're in the situation that we are in, when you are not a general manager, let me just put it that way. When you are not a general manager, when you're not entrenched in professional hockey behind the scenes, is that you have to understand the value across the board of a particular skill set. And that is not static. That is not static. It is not a fixed, let me say it that way. It is not a fixed amount that never changes. There are ebbs and flows in the game of hockey, the way that the game is played, what seems to work, what doesn't work, but what positions are elevated, what are not. And you have to have your thumb on that at all times to make a trade happen. And as much as Emma and I are around in near the world of sports and the general manager and all of that, we're not a part of those conversations. So there is information that we as the public don't have. And that makes this really tricky. Very tricky for me, Emma.
Yeah. And, so many hockey fans out there fancy themselves experts on this kind of thing. I just think that there is a tendency, and I've said this before, and this is not at all specific to Predators fans. I think it goes for every fan base. There is a tendency for fans to maybe overvalue
Yes.
their own players, like their own team's players, and what value they think that they could get in return in a trade. And that's understandable because you're kind of in a bubble where you're looking, it's like, well, this guy is really valuable for this team, but he may not be as valuable to another team. And so I think that it's hard when it's not just about what your team needs and what your team dynamics are and what your team's cap space looks like. It is about, what do these other teams need? What is their
Yeah.
cap look like? What other deals are they making with other teams apart from yours? Like, none of this happens, like you said, it's not fixed. None of it happens in a vacuum. It is really, even if it's a trade between like the Predators and the Devils, it's really not just about the Predators and the Devils, because there's other teams calling the Preds, there's other teams calling the Devils. They're working out with like other teams around the league. They're looking at what their division rivals are doing and trying to gain an edge over them. It's just, there's so many different aspects that go into this kind of thing, that it's not just like the trade that's happening in front of you. Like, oh,
Yes.
player for this player, done. Like, there's so much more to it.
Yeah. We're going to simplify it on Fake Trade Tuesday. And on today's show, we focused in on a player that I have been upfront about. I've been very upfront about this. I have been interested in this player for 2 seasons now. Nobody's listening. But we're going to talk about Dawson Mercer. This was also a name not just brought up by me, but some of our insiders were like, hey, what about young Mr. Dawson Mercer with the New Jersey Devils? So we're going to dig into what that would look like. What would the Nashville Predators have to give up? What is the benefit of getting somebody like a Dawson Mercer to come on this roster? And what is it worth? And we're going to dive into a Dawson Mercer trade coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by our great friends at Wonderful Pistachios. If you are looking for that snack that is both delicious and nutritious, you need to crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they are packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I am a no shells variety kind of girl. It is a perfect grab and go snack for those busy days. Whether I am sitting at my desk working and need a quick snack, or I'm in the car headed down to development camp, or if I just hit that point in the day where I know I need a little protein boost, it is the perfect go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite as well. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, Emma, now that we have laid out all the reasons we don't want to do this episode, we are fully embracing doing our first Fake Trade Tuesday. And we are talking again about Dawson Mercer. Dawson Mercer, of course, is a 23-year-old forward. He plays with the New Jersey Devils. He was the 18th overall pick in the 2020 draft. You may have remembered me mentioning how much I wish we would have picked him over who we picked at number 11 on a previous episode. But that's neither here nor there. He debuted in the 2021-22 season. This is one of the things that I think is really interesting. Dawson Mercer has played all 82 games since he debuted in the NHL. Of course, 22-23 was his career high season where he really popped off. 27 goals, 29 assists for 56 points. This season, he was a 19 goals scorer, 36 points. Had a couple of goals in the postseason as the Devils took on Carolina in the first round. When you think about Dawson Mercer, Emma, what are the reasons that you think he might be a good addition for the Nashville Predators?
He's young, he's fast, and he scores goals. I mean, I get it.
Dreamy.
Sounds great. Believe me, I get it. When I start to poo-poo on this trade idea, trust me, it is not because I don't think he would be a good fit for Nashville. I understand that part completely. I mean, he is, I'm with you. Yes, a lot of people will say, it's hindsight's 2020, but I don't know that back in 2020 we would have necessarily, well, maybe you would have, but I don't know that I would have been like, yes, Dawson Mercer is the guy you take at number 11. But I know who you shouldn't take at number 11, and we talked about that last week. Just saying. Hint,
That was a
hint,
real trade.
Hint, hint. He's the goalie in San Jose.
There's a lot to like about Dawson Mercer, especially, when you've got this team that's sort of in this weird spot. The Nashville Predators are kind of like, sort of like, we might try to win now, but we're also really going to try to build for the future. I do think a lot of people feel like Dawson Mercer's 27 goal season was kind of like a fluke. But I'm like, hey, he's a 20 goal scorer. Doesn't that sound dreamy? His 27 goal season would put him right below Nashville's quote core four scorers of Forsberg, Stamkos, Marchessault, and O'Reilly this past season. Now, that's not saying something because this past season, a whole thing. I love Dawson Mercer. I really do. This is a kid I've been really, really high on for a while, and I would love to get on the Predators. Here is my con. And again, it has nothing to do with Dawson Mercer. This is where Nashville's, we're trying to thread the needle, makes any trade or off-season move so difficult to weigh out right now. Because you want a long-term piece, and you love the Dawson Mercer. He's 23 years old. He's got a lot of hockey ahead of him. But you also want a path for the players already in your system to develop into. So you have to weigh out, we want this long-term Dawson Mercer piece, but what does that cost a Luke Evangelista? Or what does that cost down the road, perhaps a Joachim Kimmel or a Fedor Svechkov? And you have to weigh out, is this going to take a top 6 spot away from somebody who needs to get up there to see if they can? And that's where I go back to, thank you for giving Luke Evangelista top 6 minutes. Thank you for giving Fedor Svechkov some top 6 minutes, or Zach LaRue, I mean. Because you got to put them there to see what they can do. And if you go out and you get Dawson Mercer, you are pretty much out of slots in the top 6. So for me, Nashville is in a conundrum because they're trying to thread the needle. Here is the other thing that's going to make trades tricky for Nashville. There is not a player on that roster who had a really great season. And you look at Steven Stamkos and what Steven Stamkos would bring after this season versus before this season, you got 2 totally different ball games. And other general managers are going to have to figure out what the real value is of a player on the Nashville Predators roster to do any sort of trade. So I think this is tough for Nashville.
Yeah, a couple things. First of all, you're absolutely right. Every single person on the Nashville Predators trade value is at an all-time low right now. So that doesn't help you if you're Nashville trying to get, anyone. I think any hope for any kind of like what I think a lot of fans would consider like a big time trade for Nashville in the offseason would have to involve at least one of their first round picks, if not multiple. Just because I don't know that there's anyone on the current roster who's going to move the needle enough. Now, you have like Ryan O'Reilly technically doesn't have the trade protection, but they're treating him like he does. Jonathan Marchessault doesn't have trade protection. That could be one worth keeping an eye on. But again, this is not reporting like, oh, I've heard things. I haven't. I'm just saying if you're looking at the straight facts of who has trade protection in their contracts and who doesn't, Jonathan Marchessault doesn't. So, that's something to keep an eye on. But even he, again, like everyone's trade value right now is at an all-time low after the season that just unfolded. And I think that, if you're looking at Nashville and like you said, as far as taking top 6 slots, I agree with you for maybe like this season. Maybe this season and next season, yes, it could potentially. I see what you're saying, but honestly, for the long term, I don't think that bringing in a again, I'm now playing devil's advocate. I'm like, I don't think bringing in Dawson Mercer would necessarily be a problem in that respect, just because the guys who you have in your top 6 slots, I mean, yes, you've got Evangelista, you've got LaRue. I still don't know if I'm sold on LaRue as a top 6 forward. I'm not saying he's not, but I'm saying I don't know yet. I think Evangelista is. LaRue maybe. But as far as like the rest of those guys, the veterans, they won't be there in a couple years.
Fair.
Beyond like Forsberg. But I just think if you had a chance to get a 23-year-old in there, and the reason I think that Mercer comes up a lot is because there was that rumor about at the trade deadline that the Devils wanted him, and Barry Trotz apparently, again, this is all hearsay. This rumor did not come from a like super credible, reliable source. So it's take it with a grain of salt, but like I guess the Predators wanted Simon Nemec, Dawson Mercer, and like a first round pick or something ridiculous like that for Ryan O'Reilly. Now, I understand Ryan O'Reilly didn't want to be traded. So this could be Barry Trotz trying to get a team to overpay for him, saying like, we're only getting rid of Ryan O'Reilly if a team really overpays. But even then, Ryan O'Reilly is one of your best players, but teams are still looking at him and saying, okay, well, he's not getting any younger. Why would we give up a draft pick and 2 talented young players for this guy who realistically is only going to help us for like the next couple years? So I think to me, that's a bigger issue for the Predators, as well as so many of their assets are aging and other teams aren't going to be as interested in them. And the assets they have who aren't aging, I don't think are going to fetch the kind of return that some fans maybe think they would.
Coming up, we're going to tell you why we think the Devils might be interested in a deal and who we would maybe toss out there as just an idea. So Emma, you were just talking about, making a trade with the Devils and Dawson Mercer and the value of Nashville players right now. And again, this is one of those things where you have to be able to read the entire NHL to have some idea of trade value in this particular offseason with this deal. And you also have to look at, okay, what does New Jersey really want? Because if you are trying to get Dawson Mercer, a young, talented, goal scoring player, off of their roster and onto yours, you better give them what they want. And clearly, it's not going to be Ryan O'Reilly, or so we have heard. So you look at the New Jersey Devils. Of course, they made it into the first round, but they didn't make it far enough. Defensively, I feel like pretty good defensively. I mean, they've got a Hughes brother. They've got Dougie Hamilton, Brett Pesce. Like, I think they're doing well. They've got some really good offensive weapons. Nico Hischier, Timo Meier, Jesper Bratt. They got another Hughes brothers, because why have one when you can have 2? But I do think one of the things that they are looking for is just another offensive weapon. with maybe a little bit of zhuzh. I've read pieces where the Devils were like, you know who we'd really love? Brady Tkachuk. I'm like, why would you want a Brady Tkachuk? Why would you want a Tkachuk? But that's a podcast for a different day, or maybe just an offline conversation for me.
I think that's a personal beef for
That's
you,
a
Anne.
personal beef for me. My sons at Worlds were like, we're getting the jersey of the brothers who fought. And I said, no, you're
No, you're
not.
not.
No, you're not.
And you're uninvited to Thanksgiving now. Thank
That's
you
right.
very
I was
much.
like, I will get you a Cal and Ryan O'Reilly brothers set if you want to set them brother jerseys. But yes, that's probably just a me thing. But if you're looking at maybe what New Jersey would want, you mentioned this name, and I'm just gonna toss it out and just see what happens. But Jonathan Marchessault. And here is what I'm thinking. And again, there is so much nuance to this, but here's what I'm thinking. I think New Jersey really feels like they are close. And I don't know that Barry Trotz would agree with this, but I think New Jersey is closer than Nashville. Now we'll see what happens this next season. If by some miracle, all of the hockey gods, things that went against Nashville turn, we'll see what happens. But New Jersey, I think, is close. They've made moves to fix goaltending. I think they're good defensively. I think they're looking for one more spicy piece. I'd like you to meet Jonathan Marchessault. Very, very spicy. My other thing, and this again, hear me when I say this is fake Trade Tuesday, and this is not reporting or even speculation, but some of the comments that Marchessault made at the end of locker room cleanout may lead some people to think he don't want to be here. Now, I don't know that that is necessarily even true, but if you are looking to make a deal, he doesn't have trade protection. Maybe he is looking to be a contender. We know that Barry Trotz was like, hey guys, come here and contend. And Jonathan Marchessault is looking around and blowing dust off of his Vegas ring. Maybe that is a piece, maybe that is something that New Jersey would consider. Would you like a Jonathan Marchessault? He's fun, but he leaves his clothes kind of laying around.
He does.
He does.
I think they would like a Jonathan Marchessault if he was maybe 5 years younger.
Yeah.
And that's not a knock on him. I'm not saying age is a disease. I'm just saying that if you look again at the rest of their roster, how it's constructed, they are, they are on, like you said, they're close. They're at the end of their rebuild. And yes, in a rebuild, you need to have some veteran pieces to kind of like stabilize your core. But I think they have that already. They have veteran pieces and even their younger, like I would say young veterans, guys like Nico Hischier, guys like Timo Meier, on the back end, they're set. I think what New Jersey wants is a solid middle six forward, which don't we all? So I think on Nashville's roster, people might hear that, Nashville fans might hear that and say like, oh, middle six forward. Well, you can have, I don't know, pick a middle six forward. Like you can have Michael McCarron. That's a bottom six forward, but still it's like, no. If they're going to give up Dawson Mercer, who is a solid middle six forward, they're going to need an even better one to come back. And again, it's the age thing. It's like, why, if you're New Jersey, because New Jersey, as I said, they're at the end of their rebuild, but they're not going all in on like, it's this year or never because our window closed it. No, their window is just opening. Marchessault might make a little bit more sense if this was like an all-in kind of year. They're about to lose a bunch of players in free agency or whatever, and this is really their last chance to go all in. It might make more sense. But again, that's not where New Jersey's at right now in their timeline. I think they're trying to let's start to be competitive now and stay competitive. Because we have all these young pieces and guys signed to long-term contracts and we want to win with this group. And I don't know that would be appealing to them. I also just have a feeling that a 1-for-1, again, hypothetically,
Yeah.
if Barry Trotz went and said, hey, we'll give you Jonathan Marchessault for Dawson Mercer, I feel like Barry would try to ask for more than that. He'd be like, hey, this guy's won a Stanley Cup. Give us Dawson Mercer and something else. And I'd be like, Barry, what are you doing? Come on.
Yeah.
So
Offer him Jonathan Marchessault and a grilled cheese from Bridgestone.
Yeah.
You know, but, and again, it comes down to things like you're saying, like, where are they in their window? The other thing you have to factor in as you're talking about doing these trades are, where is their prospect development? You know, because here in Nashville, we have a pretty good, you know, Emma and I have a pretty good idea of prospects in the pipeline and where they're at and like what is maybe, you know, or we're getting glimpses of their floor or their ceiling. And Barry Trotz has said, look, I'm not really interested in prospects, not super interested in picks. I have them falling out of my pockets. I'm interested in hockey trades. So I think that limits the, you know, the number of trades you can do. And also, you make a great point. No one's trading down. No one in this league is going to trade down. So it's got to be the right fit. And again, I feel like there are so many reasons why this season has hurt the Nashville Predators, not just in our hearts, but also in trade value. Because even the players that on paper you're like, they'd get you a haul, after this past season, their trade value is not what you think it should be. It's not. People are not going to overpay for Steven Stamkos, even though he has a no move or no trade. Nobody is going to overpay for a Nashville Predators player, and nobody is going to trade down. And this is where I think trades are going to be really difficult for the Nashville Predators. Buckle up, friends.
Yeah, because every once in a while you get lucky and you get a Julian Brisebois giving you an entire draft class for Tanner Jeannot.
That was the greatest thing that ever happened.
I worked for the team at that point, and I was getting it like we had a game at that time. We were in Arizona. Yeah. And so I was getting from Team PR was texting me like as the trade was happening. It's like, and we got this and this and this. And I kept waiting to be like, okay, so who else is going with Jeannot? It was like that, just him? Really?
Just him.
That's it. Like, and so I like that will happen every once in a while. We see it happen. But as you correctly pointed out, that does not happen after years like this one. No one is looking at anything that happened in Nashville and saying, ooh, you know what? We may have to overpay a little, but it'll be worth it to get that guy. Like, it's not
you don't
happen.
know. You don't know if it's going to be worth it, even with guys where you would have overpaid a year ago. You don't know. And I think this is just one of many challenges that this past season has placed before Barry Trotz and Emma and I on Fake Trade Tuesday, because values are not what they could or maybe even should be after the Nashville Predators season. Well, hopefully we weren't too much of a party pooper on that. Again, we're going to try Fake Trade Tuesday. We would love to know your thoughts. What do you think Dawson Mercer is a player who added to this Nashville Predators roster elevates it? And what is worth trading? What would you give up for a Dawson Mercer on the roster? Let us know in the comments of this YouTube video, or you can always reach out to us on social media, LO_Predators as well. Before we wrap up and regroup and cleanse our hearts from this Fake Trade Tuesday, Emma, will you let everyone know where they can find you and your work?
You can find me on social media at Emma_Lingan, and you can find my work at the Hockey News.
You can find me on social media at AnnK_Mama on Ice. You can find my work with Penalty Box Radio as well. Friends, that is going to do it for this episode of the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We will be back tomorrow with an all new episode. We will see you then.